Hi, I'm Benjamin Mac Jackson, founder of the World War II Veterans History Project. I started this project in the summer of 2015 with the goal of providing knowledge and inspiration to my generation so they can better appreciate and understand what these heroes went through. My mission is to preserve the memories of the greatest generation. In this story, World War II veteran Bill McDonald shares his breathtaking story when he landed in the first wave on Omaha Beach on D-Day, June 6, 1944. He also tells of the humorous encounters with Soviet soldiers along the Elbe River after the war had ended. To fighting his way from Normandy to Berlin, Bill McDonald gives you a feel of what it was like to serve as a sergeant in the U.S. Army more than 70 years ago. Here's his story.
William McDonald, branch was infantry, 1st Division, Company C. Well, we got on a train and went to Fort Dix. It was Friday the 13th, 1940. And wound up in Dix, and then I was told to report to Fort J, Governor's Island in New York Harbor. And it was the 16th Infantry, 1st Division, the Big Red One. And it was Company C, and that was, we were billeted in Governor's Island about 3 years. 41, 42, 43 went overseas. They found out I was going to Police Academy in New York to prepare to take the test. They call it Delahanty's. And I was going for the police department. Of course, my family was all civil service, fire department, police department. And I found out, they found that on my 35 record of everything about me, where I went to school, what have you. And they took me out of the 1st Division and formed the 1st Army MP unit, the sergeant in military police, they made. Because I had the knowledge of New York City Police Department. And that's where we stayed for 3 years, in New York. So I'd have all kinds of assignments. The Germans were on the high ground shooting down on us. The Germans were in position, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. They had the high ground, and the guys were coming off the landing craft and being shot. It was a mess. they were going to call the invasion off because we lost 5,000 men. 5,000 men. And they didn't have a chance. They couldn't get a rifle up out of the water and return the fire, and they were in pillboxes anyway. The first job we had was to capture St. Mary's Lease, where the paratrooper was hanging from the roof. It was the 82nd Airborne and the 1st Division were coming into St. Mary's Lease. I established headquarters for us there in the butcher shop. I went back. There was no butcher anymore. It was bombed out, post holding the building up. All of a sudden, this Jeep comes from the beach. And we didn't have many coming from the beach. They were scouting, coming around through St. Lo. Anyway, this Jeep, as it came up, all officer vehicles have a placard and there's number of stars are on it as to what their rank is, brigadier, if they're generals. And this one was a pretty big one, and it was covered. Naturally, it was another aiming spot for the, especially if they saw a high-ranking officer. So this vehicle is coming up, and its rank is pretty high. In it was the driver and Eisenhower, and back of it, our boss, commanding officer of the 1st Division, Omar Bradley. You might have, Omar Bradley was the greatest general. He was considered a soldier's general, always looking out for the troops. That's why that shook him up, that he lost 5,000 on that beach. And they were still pouring them in. They stopped by me, and where is the 5th evacuation hospital? And I was told it was down the road towards the direction north of us, a little north of us, I think it was. Anyway, I told him where it was, and Eisenhower asked me the question. And it was naturally salute all around. You draw fire when you salute, though. Of course, you're not enlisted men saluting one another. We didn't do that. So anyway, and the Eisenhower said, "Tell the vehicle behind us to follow us." So you got Eisenhower, you got Omar Bradley in charge of the American invasion, and you got the English, was it Montgomery? So as the other vehicle came up, I saw on their bumper, so it's rank. And we told them where to go, Montgomery. My claim to fame was I told Eisenhower, gave Eisenhower directions. And the fellow said, nothing like that happens while we're on post. How come it happened to you, Sarge? Well, after the war was over, that was the best part of it. The Germans capitulated. And we met the Russians coming from the east, and we were coming from the west. At the Elbe River in Germany, it runs north and south. And we had strict rules come down to us that you don't go on their side of the river, and they don't come on our side of the river. And there was a rickety old bridge, stone bridge, that somebody put up. All of a sudden, about 5 very drunk Russians in a vehicle tore over the bridge and were parroting, "Viva la Grand American Army." So I had just received 3 replacements, Chaplinsky, Bagadinsky, and Bogdansky. And we called them all by their last name. It wasn't Joe and Pete and Sam. So I said, it was alphabetical. So it's C and B. And somebody, one of the men that was drinking with the Russians, we allowed it. They were getting along good. Viva la Grand American, all that stuff. So one of the guy, I'm over here. Chaplinsky is over here. He's a Polish Jew. So I hear the American trooper go over to Chaplinsky and say, what can we say back to them when they say, "Viva la Grand American Army"? And Chaplinsky's very simple, "Ruski hoy." Now Chaplinsky, because he was Polish and what the Russians did to the Polacks, he was very upset with the whole thing, but he told them, "Ruski hoy." So they go back and they "Viva la Grand American Army, Ruski hoy." The faces changed. His Russian penis. So with this Russian officer comes across the bridge, and he came up to me, and he said, "You know what your men are saying?" I said, "I don't speak Russian." And he told me in Russian, penis. He was nice about it. It was the phonetical name of it. So anyway, that was the end of that. He herded them back over the bridge. We went about our business. And Chaplinsky is laughing like hell behind the truck. So that's humorous. To be there was amazing. The greatest army was the American Army, that without a doubt came in contact with all of them. And the American Army was class. And they went around and they fought like hell. Got the job done. The Russian Army was a ragtag army. I don't think that 2 of them had the same type of clothing on. They had German sports clothing on that they got out of the homes in Germany. It's crazy. We were up in northern Germany, near Berlin, wasn't too far away. Anyway, the old man called me in, battalion headquarters it was, and he was a major. And he said, McDonald, I don't know if you know, but you're flying home. So that was good news. So they gave me a Jeep. We always had extra Jeeps around. Gave me a Jeep to drive down to Marseille, and they converted the B-17s into taking care of 10 men, each one of them. We wound up, another young man wound up with me in the nose of the B-17. There was 6 of us in the bomb bay, and there was 2 in the tail to distribute the weight. The 17s flew us to Casablanca. Now, we're all very concerned that the Japanese war wasn't over yet. And when we left Europe, went down to Casablanca, you could go that way to Japan or this way to the States. And the Army never told you that. But we was running through our minds that we could be sent to Japan. But they didn't. We went to Casablanca. And in a fortress, when they come in at about 170 miles an hour to land. Something like that, I don't know. And in the nose of the plane, you're headed right into the concrete. And this young fellow, we were hugging one another by the time we landed. I said, "You're very young. How come you got to fly home?" Congressional Medal of Honor winner. That was my buddy. So we got to Casablanca, and from Casablanca, they flew us in C-54s to the Azores and stayed there for a while. From the Azores, we're supposed to go to Newfoundland. But weather, we ran into a storm over the Atlantic. It was pretty bad. I wouldn't want to be in that plane, flying that route very long. And the wind-up was they moved us from moving into that we wound up in Presque Isle, Maine. They landed the plane in Presque Isle, Maine, and that was American soil. We're home. So they took care of it. It was a great trip. Going home, always a great trip. I was over there 2 years. That was it. I promised I was going to take myself and my family, I was going to take a month off since I got to get home. And I had a little girl. She was born just before I went overseas. And anyway, they get to know them and know my wife after 2 years not being there. War is stupid. And you know who said that? Eisenhower. You read his book, the last chapter, he spills his guts about war. He says it's unnecessary, it's stupid, and called it everything under the sun. And we should, much as to say, we should never be suckered into another war. And the guy that closely does what Eisenhower said is Obama. He won't put men in boots on the ground. So why do we fight all these battles? We're police of the world. We shouldn't. It's 5,000 men on the beach killed for what? I'm not one that carries things home. This is about the most I've ever talked about the war.
To learn more about the World War II Veterans History Project, please visit our website at WWII.VeteransHistoryProject.com. We look forward to seeing you again for more exciting stories from the greatest generation.